Marcus Webb was 38 years old when his fiancée sat him down 3 months before their wedding and slid a prenuptial agreement across the kitchen table. She told him her grandmother had just died, leaving her $5.2 million, and she needed to protect it. Marcus was a freelance tech consultant. He drove a 10-year-old Honda, lived in a modest apartment, earned about $150,000 a year. The prenup was devastatingly one-sided, her assets completely protected, but his future earnings would become marital property, an infidelity clause that would financially destroy him if he ever strayed. She squeezed his hand, called it just a formality to protect my grandmother's legacy. Marcus read every page. Then he signed without argument. What Vanessa didn't know was that Marcus had sold his software company 5 years earlier for $300 million. His wealth was hidden in trusts and corporate structures she would never find. As he watched her smile with satisfaction, Marcus made a decision. He would let her believe she'd won. He would play the role she'd written for him, and when she revealed what she was really after, he would show her the cost of underestimating a quiet man. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. Marcus Webb leaned back in his worn office chair, the glow of his laptop screen illuminating his face in the dim evening light of his modest one-bedroom apartment. A spreadsheet displayed his latest portfolio update, $340 million, up from the original $300 million he'd earned selling his AI security company 5 years ago. The scent of Chinese takeout wafted from the paper containers balanced on his lap, still warm from the drive home in his trusty 2013 Honda Civic. He glanced around his deliberately unremarkable apartment. Basic IKEA furniture, a few family photos, and a small TV mounted on the wall. The rent was reasonable at $2,200 per month, exactly what someone making his supposed $150K freelance consultant salary could afford comfortably. The choice to live simply hadn't been easy at first. After selling his company, Marcus had dreamed of penthouses and luxury cars, but 3 disastrous relationships changed everything. Each woman had somehow discovered his wealth, and their true colors emerged quickly after. The last one had even hired a private investigator to document his assets, before trying to trap him into marriage. That's when Marcus made his decision. He moved his fortune into a complex web of anonymous LLCs and offshore trusts. He rented this basic apartment under one of his shell companies. He took on small consulting projects to maintain his cover story. To the world, he was just another hard-working software engineer making a decent living. Nothing more. His phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. A smile spread across his face as he read her message asking about his day. 18 months ago, he'd been working his usual table at the Daily Grind coffee shop when she walked into his life at a local charity fundraiser. She was striking in a simple black dress, her natural confidence drawing every eye in the room. But it was her direct approach that caught him off guard. "You look like you'd rather be coding than networking," she'd said, sliding into the chair across from him. Her MBA-polished corporate event planner credentials could have made her intimidating, but her warm laugh and genuine interest in his work put him at ease immediately. Their first date was at a family-owned Italian restaurant. His suggestion, testing her reaction to somewhere understated. Vanessa had seemed delighted, more interested in their conversation than the modest surroundings. "It's refreshing to meet someone so grounded," she'd said, twirling pasta on her fork. "Success doesn't always have to mean showing off." The memory of introducing her to his small circle of friends brought another smile. They'd gathered for a backyard barbecue at his college roommate's house. Vanessa had jumped right in, helping arrange chairs and mixing cocktails. No hints of disappointment at the casual setting, no subtle suggestions about upgrading to fancier venues. Marcus's hand drifted to his neck, remembering his nerves the night he proposed. He'd chosen an $8,000 ring. Beautiful, but not extravagant, suitable for his supposed income. They were walking through the local botanical gardens, her favorite spot for weekend strolls, when he dropped to one knee. Vanessa's tears seemed genuine as she whispered yes and pulled him close. For the first time since selling his company, Marcus felt truly seen for who he was, not what he owned. Vanessa appreciated his mind, his calm nature, his supposed financial responsibility. She never pushed for expensive gifts or fancy trips. She seemed to truly value the simple life they were building together. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was Vanessa asking him to come home early from his usual workspace at the coffee shop. "Need to discuss something important about our future," her text read. 3 months until their wedding. Probably something about the ceremony, he thought. Marcus closed his laptop, carefully tucking it into his worn messenger bag. He gathered the empty takeout containers, taking a moment to appreciate the quiet contentment of his chosen life. The engagement ring had been sized perfectly, another detail that made him smile. Everything felt right. After years of hiding his wealth and guarding his heart, he'd finally found someone who loved Marcus Webb, the man, not Marcus Webb, the millionaire. He grabbed his keys from the counter, the familiar weight of his Honda fob a reminder of the simple life he'd chosen, the life that had led him to Vanessa. Traffic was light as he headed toward their meeting spot, his mind already turning to wedding details they might need to discuss. The hallway light flickered as Marcus approached their apartment door. His key turned smoothly in the lock, but something felt different tonight. The usual warmth of coming home to Vanessa was replaced by an unfamiliar tension in the air. She sat at their small kitchen table, her posture straight and professional. More like the corporate event planner he'd first met than his relaxed fiancée. Legal documents were spread across the wooden surface, their crisp white pages stark against the dark grain. Her fingers drummed lightly on the stack closest to her. "Hi, honey," she said, her voice carrying that precise tone she used for business meetings. "Thanks for coming home early. We need to talk about something important." Marcus set his messenger bag down carefully, studying her expression. She wore her navy blazer, her power outfit, as she called it, and her hair was pulled back in a neat bun. This wasn't about wedding flowers or catering choices. "Of course," he said, sliding into the chair across from her. "Everything okay?" Vanessa took a deep breath, folding her hands on top of the document. "My grandmother passed away last month." "I'm so sorry," Marcus said softly. "You never mentioned—" "We weren't close," she cut in smoothly, "but she left me an inheritance. A substantial one. $5.2 million. Marcus kept his face neutral, even as his mind raced. In all their conversations about family, she'd never once mentioned a wealthy grandmother. "The thing is," she continued, sliding one of the documents toward him, "my family attorney is insisting I protect this inheritance with a prenup. It's just a formality, really. But given the amount involved, he says it would be irresponsible not to have one." Marcus picked up the document, scanning its contents while maintaining his carefully constructed persona of the modestly successful consultant. Inside, his analytical mind was already noting red flags. The prenup was masterfully crafted to protect her completely while leaving him exposed. Her inheritance would remain entirely separate property, including any appreciation or reinvestment gains. Any property purchased with her funds would be solely hers. Meanwhile, his future earnings during marriage would be considered marital property, subject to equal division. The infidelity clause was particularly telling. If he cheated, he'd owe her substantial penalties, but her potential infidelity warranted barely a mention. A sunset clause would only activate after 15 years of marriage. "I know it seems very legal and formal," Vanessa said, reaching across to squeeze his hand. Her engagement ring caught the light. "But you understand, right? My grandmother worked her whole life to build this wealth. I have to protect her legacy." Marcus looked up from the document, meeting her eyes. Where he usually saw warmth and connection, he noticed something else tonight. A calculating edge, quickly masked by an encouraging smile. "Of course I understand," he said, his voice steady. "It makes perfect sense to protect such a significant inheritance." Relief flooded her face. "Too quickly," he thought. "I knew you'd get it. You're always so practical about these things. I should probably have my lawyer look it over," Marcus said, maintaining his role perfectly. "Nothing fancy, just the guy who helps with my consulting contracts. Would that be okay?" "Absolutely," Vanessa beamed. "Take all the time you need." "Well, within reason. We should have this signed before the wedding." 3 days later, Marcus's budget lawyer, actually an associate from his regular firm, carefully instructed to play the part, suggested one addition: a requirement for full financial disclosure from both parties within 90 days of marriage. "Just to protect you two," the lawyer explained in their deliberately modest meeting room. "Make sure everything's on the table." When Marcus proposed this addition to Vanessa, she agreed immediately. "Of course, I want everything to be completely transparent between us." The prenup was signed that afternoon in her lawyer's office. Marcus maintained his persona flawlessly, playing the role of the appreciative fiancé who understood the need to protect family wealth. Vanessa seemed almost giddy afterward, suggesting they celebrate at their usual neighborhood bistro. That night, lying in bed beside her sleeping form, Marcus felt the first real crack in his trust. The way she'd presented the prenup, her sudden revelation of wealth she'd never mentioned, the calculated one-sidedness of the agreement, it all felt orchestrated. But he pushed these thoughts away, attributing them to pre-wedding jitters. Morning came too quickly. Marcus told Vanessa he had an early client meeting, kissing her goodbye as she sleepily waved from their bed. Instead, he found himself parked outside a nondescript office building, staring at the discreet lettering on the door. Clayton Investigative Services. The prenup sat on his passenger seat, its pages now dog-eared from his repeated reading. His hand rested on the car door handle as he weighed his choices: trust the woman he loved, or follow his instincts and investigate. The leather chair creaked as Marcus settled into it, facing Clayton Davidson, a former FBI agent turned private investigator. The office was deliberately understated. No certificates on the walls, just a simple desk and a few filing cabinets. It matched Clayton's appearance: gray suit, unremarkable tie, watchful eyes that missed nothing. "I need a comprehensive background check," Marcus said, placing Vanessa's information on the desk. "Everything: financial history, past relationships, employment records, property holdings. Leave no stone unturned." Clayton picked up the paper, scanning it efficiently. "Fiancé?" "Yes." Marcus's fingers tapped against his knee. "I need peace of mind before the wedding. Complete confidentiality is essential." "Always is." Clayton input something into his computer. 2 weeks. Thorough sweep, deep dive on financials, full relationship history. 10,000. Marcus nodded, sliding an envelope across the desk. Cash, untraceable to his real accounts. Half now, half on delivery. 14 days later, Marcus sat in the same chair, holding a thick manila envelope. His hands were steady, but his heart raced as he pulled out the first document. "You'll want to start with the marriage records," Clayton said quietly. The first page hit Marcus like a physical blow. There it was, in black and white. A marriage certificate for Vanessa Price and Julian Torres, dated 5 years ago. The divorce decree followed, along with hundreds of pages of court filings. "The grandmother's inheritance?" Clayton's voice was gentle. "It's actually a divorce settlement. She was married to Torres for 4 years. He was a real estate developer in Portland, successful until his company went bankrupt." Marcus remembered asking Vanessa about past marriages directly. She'd laughed, saying she'd never found anyone worth the commitment before him. The lie burned in his memory as he read through the court documents. "The timing is interesting," Clayton continued. She filed for divorce exactly 3 days after Torres Developments declared bankruptcy, claimed he was hiding assets, demanded full forensic accounting. The courts granted her motion. Marcus spread the documents across Clayton's desk. The bankruptcy filings showed a complicated mess of failed development deals, but the divorce settlement was crystal clear: $5.2 million awarded to Vanessa. The exact amount she now claimed came from her grandmother. "There's more," Clayton said, pulling out another file. "Recent activity, you should see." Credit card statements appeared next. Vanessa's personal cards, ones she kept in her name only. Marcus recognized the format. He'd seen these statements on their kitchen counter, but he'd never looked closely at the charges. 3 payments to Eclipse Research Services, a skip tracing firm known for deep-dive financial investigations. Charges for premium access to property databases. Payments to online background check services. "She's looking for something," Clayton observed. "Or someone's assets." Marcus's throat tightened. "She's investigating me. Aggressively." Clayton tapped the statements. "She's searching bank records, property holdings, employment history. But she's looking in obvious places: standard bank accounts, direct property ownership, traditional investment vehicles." A bitter laugh escaped Marcus. His wealth was protected by layers of trusts, LLCs, and offshore entities. Sophisticated structures invisible to surface-level searches. Vanessa was hunting for hidden money, but she was looking in all the wrong places. "There's also this." Clayton handed over transcripts of text messages between Vanessa and her friends. Marcus read them with growing numbness. No way he's content living like that. Nobody with his skills makes so little. The apartment, the old car, it has to be an act. Keep digging. Rich guys always slip up somewhere. The messages painted a clear picture. Vanessa wasn't protecting her assets with the prenup. She was laying groundwork, preparing for something bigger. Dawn was breaking when Marcus finally left Clayton's office, the damning evidence stored safely in his briefcase. He drove home on autopilot, his mind processing everything he'd learned. Entering their apartment silently, he found Vanessa asleep in their bed. She looked peaceful, beautiful, the woman he'd thought he knew. His laptop cast a blue glow across the bedroom as he sat at his desk, watching her breathe evenly. It was 3 a.m. In the quiet darkness, Marcus faced his decision. He could confront her now, end things before they went further. Or he could play a longer game, marry her, maintain his careful facade, and wait for her to reveal her true intentions. Vanessa shifted in her sleep, murmuring something inaudible. Marcus watched her, his expression unreadable in the dim light. The late September sun streamed through the church's stained-glass windows, casting rainbow patterns across the marble floor. Marcus stood at the altar, adjusting his bow tie one final time. The string quartet began playing Canon in D, and the church doors opened. Vanessa appeared in a flood of white silk and lace, her dress perfectly fitted to her slim frame. Her smile radiated pure joy as she glided down the aisle on her father's arm. Looking at her, Marcus felt an odd disconnect. She was breathtaking, exactly the bride he'd dreamed of. Yet his mind kept flashing to the manila envelope in his storage unit containing proof of her previous marriage and calculated deceptions. He maintained his expression perfectly, letting genuine-looking tears of happiness well up in his eyes as she approached. Their guests saw exactly what they expected: a man overwhelmed by love for his beautiful bride. None of them could guess that, behind his tender smile, Marcus was counting the surveillance cameras he'd had professionally installed throughout the church and reception venue. "You look stunning," he whispered as she reached him, and she squeezed his hand. Her diamond engagement ring, the modest $8,000 one she'd accepted with such apparent gratitude, sparkled in the light. The ceremony proceeded flawlessly. They exchanged traditional vows, though Marcus noted how Vanessa's voice cracked with emotion at "for richer or poorer." knowing now that the crack wasn't from sentiment, but from the lie. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, their kiss was picture perfect. The photographs would show nothing but joy. At the reception, Marcus played his role with precision. He gave a speech that brought tears to everyone's eyes, talking about finding true love when he least expected it, about how Vanessa loved him for himself rather than his success. He watched her face as he spoke, noting how she dabbed at her eyes with her napkin, her performance as flawless as his own. Vanessa's father raised his champagne glass. "To my beautiful daughter and her wonderful new husband. Marcus, you're the son I always wanted. Your humility and work ethic remind me of myself when I was starting out." Marcus smiled warmly, clinking glasses while mentally reviewing the financial disclosure documents he'd filed last week. Everything was technically true. His modest savings account, the freelance consulting income, his aging Honda. The careful legal structures hiding his real wealth remained invisible, just as they were designed to be. The honeymoon in Maui seemed idyllic on the surface. Vanessa insisted on separate room charges for tax purposes, meticulously splitting every expense. Marcus noticed how she tensed when he suggested a helicopter tour, relaxing only when he mentioned he'd been saving specifically for this trip. Back home, they settled into married life. Marcus documented everything with methodical precision. Their shared spreadsheet for household expenses showed Vanessa's insistence that he pay 60% of all costs. "It's just fair," she'd said, her tone reasonable. "You're the man of the house." This from a woman who claimed to have 50 times his assets. At dinner parties with their friends, Marcus caught every subtle dig. "Marcus is so dedicated to his freelance work," Vanessa would say, her tone just slightly patronizing. "I keep telling him there's nothing wrong with wanting a stable corporate job. He took on small consulting projects he didn't need, making sure to leave contracts visible on his desk. When she accidentally saw a $3,000 payment, she made a point of praising his hustle. Every little bit helps, honey." House hunting became another exercise in manipulation. Marcus suggested looking at modest 3-bedroom homes in good neighborhoods. Vanessa shut down each option with careful reasoning. "We need to be practical," she'd say, gesturing around their rented apartment. "This is fine until your career stabilizes. I'd rather wait than stretch ourselves too thin." Marcus noted how she never mentioned using any of her supposed inheritance for a down payment. 6 months into their marriage, Marcus's phone buzzed with an alert he'd been expecting. His sophisticated security monitoring system, installed long before meeting Vanessa, detected unauthorized access to his cloud backup. Someone was downloading his text messages and contacts. The IP address traced back to their home network. The device signature matched Vanessa's laptop. Marcus added the digital logs to his growing file of evidence, his expression never changing as he kissed his wife goodbye that morning. "Have a productive day, honey," Vanessa called after him, her voice sweet and encouraging. "Maybe land another big client." "I'll do my best," Marcus replied, his smile perfect, his tone warm. He started his old Honda, mentally reviewing the latest addition to his documentation. The game continued, and he was playing it flawlessly. Marcus sat in his parked Honda outside the PI's office, his laptop open to the security logs showing Vanessa's breach of his cloud backup. He'd expected this, had practically designed the system to be discovered, but seeing the proof still made his stomach tighten. Taking a deep breath, he grabbed his folder and headed inside. Jerry, the PI who'd done the initial background check on Vanessa, looked up from his desk. His office remained exactly as Marcus remembered, cramped, with filing cabinets lining the walls and a desk buried under papers and surveillance equipment. "Back so soon?" Jerry asked, clearing space for Marcus to sit. Marcus placed his laptop on the desk, showing Jerry the security logs. "She's digging deeper than the skip trace. I need eyes on her, particularly any patterns, meetings, anything unusual. Full surveillance package." Jerry whistled low. That's not cheap. We're talking multiple operatives, photo documentation, detailed logs. Money isn't an issue, Marcus said quietly. I need everything. Over the next 4 weeks, Marcus received daily updates. At first, they seemed routine. Vanessa's regular schedule of client meetings, gym sessions, lunch with friends. But by week 2, patterns emerged. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Vanessa had late client meetings at the Westbrook Hotel. She'd arrive at 2 p.m. and leave around 4 p.m. Another car would arrive 15 minutes before her and leave 15 minutes after. A black BMW registered to Devon Marshall, the corporate attorney Marcus had introduced her to at their Memorial Day barbecue 3 months ago. The PI's photos told a clear story. Vanessa entering the hotel's side entrance, Devon following shortly after, both taking the elevator to the 6th floor. 2 hours later, they'd leave separately, Devon straightening his tie, Vanessa checking her makeup in her compact mirror. But it was the text messages that revealed the full scope of the betrayal. Marcus's security system had captured everything once Vanessa breached the cloud backup, giving him access to her entire message history with Devon. Sitting in his secure office space, a small room he'd rented under one of his LLC names, Marcus scrolled through their conversations, each message more damning than the last. Vanessa to Devon, 3 months ago. He's so trusting it's almost sad. Signed the prenup without even fighting. Devon. Smart move protecting your assets. What's the timeline? Vanessa. 2 years minimum. Looks better for the judge. Plus, the prenup protects all my money. Once we hit the 2-year mark, I can file and he won't get anything. Might even get some of his money if he ever lands a real job. Lol. Devon. You're sure he doesn't have money hidden somewhere? Vanessa. Please. I had him traced thoroughly. He's exactly what he looks like. A broke tech worker living above his means. The prenup was probably overkill, but at least I'm protected when I upgrade. Devon. To someone like me. Vanessa. You're fun for now, baby. But I didn't go through all this planning to settle for a junior partner at a mid-sized firm. I'm thinking bigger. Marcus leaned back in his chair, letting the full weight of their contempt wash over him. More messages revealed their growing affair. Started at that same Memorial Day barbecue where Devon had praised Marcus's grilling skills and thanked him for the invitation. The PI's report included photos of them at restaurants Marcus knew well, places he and Devon had gone for guys' nights, where Devon had listened to Marcus's carefully crafted stories about freelance struggles and career aspirations. That evening, right on schedule, Devon arrived at their apartment for their weekly beer and sports night. Marcus watched him walk in, accepting the 6-pack Devon brought, noting how his friend had grown comfortable in their space. Marcus, my man! Devon clapped him on the shoulder. Ready to watch your team lose again? Marcus handed him a perfectly poured beer, observing how Devon's eyes flickered to Vanessa as she walked through the living room. The subtle nod between them. The inside joke Marcus wasn't supposed to notice. Actually, Marcus said, settling into his chair, I've got a feeling things are going to turn out exactly the way they should. They watched the game, Devon making the same jokes he always did, offering the same career advice about stability he always gave. Marcus played his role perfectly. The grateful friend, the trusting husband, the struggling freelancer. Marcus sat across from Patricia Chen, his longtime attorney, in her corner office 40 floors above Manhattan. Early morning light streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows as he methodically arranged documents across her gleaming mahogany conference table. "Show me everything," Patricia said, adjusting her wire-rimmed glasses. Unlike the budget lawyer who'd reviewed Vanessa's prenup, Patricia had protected Marcus's fortune for years, structuring his corporate entities and trusts with ruthless precision. Marcus spread out the prenup first, then laid out the PI's surveillance photos and text message transcripts documenting Vanessa's affair with Devon. Patricia's expression remained neutral as she reviewed each piece. The affair gives us leverage, but it's not enough, she said. Let's dig deeper into that settlement money. Something about those numbers never added up. Marcus nodded. I want a full forensic investigation. Money leaves traces. Let's follow them. Patricia activated her intercom. Send in the forensic team. 3 accountants entered, led by Sarah Martinez, a specialist known for unraveling complex financial fraud. Marcus watched as they began dissecting 5 years of financial records, tracing Vanessa's $5.2 settlement backward through offshore accounts and shell companies. Here's our first red flag, Sarah said 2 hours later, pointing to a series of transactions. Starting 4 years into her marriage to Julian Torres, money began moving from his business accounts through a chain of offshore entities, small amounts at first, then larger transfers. Over 18 months, more than 4 models disappeared. The pattern emerged clearly. Vanessa had systematically drained Julian's real estate development company, hiding the money in a complex web of accounts. When he discovered the theft, she immediately filed for divorce, claiming he was hiding assets. She didn't just take his money, Sarah explained. She destroyed evidence of the theft and positioned herself as the victim. The bankruptcy wasn't from bad business decisions. His company collapsed because she hollowed it out from the inside. Marcus leaned back, processing this. Find Julian Torres. The PI's team located him within days. Julian was working as a night manager at a hotel and driving rideshare during the day in Phoenix. Struggling under crushing debt from the business collapse, everyone blamed on him. His credit was ruined, his reputation destroyed. Marcus flew to Phoenix, meeting Julian at a quiet diner during his break between jobs. The man who walked in bore little resemblance to the successful developer from old news photos. Julian was gaunt, his clothes worn, exhaustion etched into his face. "Why should I trust you?" Julian asked after Marcus explained why he wanted to meet. "Last time I trusted someone, I lost everything. Because I can prove what really happened," Marcus replied, sliding over a folder containing the forensic accountant's preliminary findings, "and I can help make it right." Julian's hands shook as he reviewed the documents showing how Vanessa had systematically stolen from him. "I knew something was wrong with the accounts, but by the time I figured it out," he couldn't finish. "Help me expose what she did to you," Marcus said quietly, "and I'll compensate you for what she stole." Back in New York, Marcus's team made another discovery. Using his social security number from their marriage license, Vanessa had opened multiple credit cards in Marcus's name. The total balance, $67,000. "Classic setup," Patricia explained. "She's building debt in your name that she'll reveal during divorce proceedings to paint you as financially irresponsible." Marcus received a text from his home security system that evening, notifying him that Vanessa was home. He found a reason to return early, entering quietly through their front door. Vanessa paced the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear. "I'm telling you, Lisa, something's not right. He's been taking these random consulting jobs, disappearing for hours. I think he might be gambling." Marcus recorded silently on his phone as she continued. "The prenup protects my assets, thank God. But I'm worried about his stability. No, I'm just being a concerned wife. When I file, the judge needs to understand he's not reliable." He stood in the shadows, recording every word as she wove her false narrative, building her case for divorce while believing he was completely in the dark. The same careful manipulation she'd used on Julian Torres, but this time, her target was ready. In his pocket, his phone captured every word, adding to the mountain of evidence that would soon bring her carefully constructed world crashing down. Marcus sat in his home office, rehearsing the phone conversation one final time. The fake contract lay perfectly positioned on his desk, visible from the living room doorway where Vanessa pretended to read her magazine. He'd noticed her lingering there more often lately, always within earshot of his work calls. He dialed his friend James, who knew the plan. Right on cue, Vanessa shifted in her armchair, turning a page while clearly straining to listen. "Yeah, the scope looks good," Marcus said, intentionally raising his volume slightly. $250,000 for 6 months is fair for the complexity involved. He paused, watching Vanessa's magazine lower slightly. "No, I agree. This could be exactly what I've been waiting for. A project this size could lead to more high-end contracts." From his peripheral vision, he saw Vanessa set her magazine down entirely, no longer pretending. Her eyes had that sharp, focused look he'd come to recognize, the same expression she'd worn when discussing her grandmother's inheritance. "Send over the final contract tomorrow," Marcus continued. "My lawyer can review it, but honestly, this looks like a game changer." He ended the call, waiting for Vanessa's inevitable approach. 3, 2, 1. "Baby." Vanessa appeared in his doorway, her voice honey-sweet. "Everything okay?" I couldn't help overhearing. Marcus swiveled his chair, maintaining his excited but humble expression. "Remember that tech company I mentioned? They want me to lead their security overhaul. 6 months, $250 total." He handed her the meticulously crafted fake contract. Vanessa's eyes scanned the document, lingering on the payment terms. Marcus watched the subtle shifts in her expression, the slight widening of her eyes, the quick calculation behind them, the practiced transformation into supportive wife mode. "This is amazing!" She wrapped her arms around his neck, pressing against him. "We should celebrate tonight. I'll cook your favorite dinner." That evening, Vanessa wore the red dress she saved for special occasions. She'd opened an expensive wine, prepared an elaborate meal, and touched him constantly throughout dinner. Her laugh came easier, her compliments flowed freely, and her eyes never left him. "Maybe it's time we think bigger," she suggested over dessert. "With this new contract, we could look at better neighborhoods, something more suitable for our future." Marcus noticed she'd said "we," despite her usual insistence on separate finances. "I thought you wanted to stay modest until my career stabilized. Things are different now." Her hand covered his. "You're different. More established." The predatory gleam in her eyes belied her warm smile. Over the next 2 weeks, Vanessa's transformation intensified. She initiated sex more frequently, cooked his favorite meals unprompted, and left sweet notes in his laptop bag. She started accidentally leaving real estate listings around the apartment, all in price ranges that would stretch his supposed freelancer's budget. Devon began dropping by more often, always with a calculated reason. "Just returning that book you lent me." Or, "Was in the neighborhood. Thought we could grab a beer." Each time, Marcus caught the knowing looks between them, the subtle signals when they thought he wasn't watching. "We should have Devon over this weekend," Vanessa suggested one evening. "He's been such a good friend to us." Marcus nodded enthusiastically. "Better idea. I'm planning a guy's weekend next month. I should invite him." He watched Vanessa's quick smile, knowing she was already calculating how to use that time. Meanwhile, Marcus noticed documents disappearing from their home office. Bank statements, tax returns, employment contracts. Vanessa was building her case methodically, squirreling away anything that might help her later. He let her take them, knowing his real records were secured with Patricia. Every few days, Marcus carefully fed her new details about the fake contract. He mentioned client calls in passing, dropped subtle hints about project milestones, always watching her mental calculator running behind her attentive smile. "I've been thinking," Vanessa said one morning, voice carefully casual, "with your career taking off, maybe we should review our prenup. Make sure you're protected too." Marcus feigned surprise. "Protected? From what?" "Oh, just being thorough." She kissed his cheek. "We should be equal partners in this marriage." The court papers arrived on a Tuesday. A motion to modify their prenuptial agreement based on substantial change in financial circumstances. Marcus read through Vanessa's filing, Noting how she'd crafted her argument around his supposedly improving financial position and her desire for mutual protection. He sat at their kitchen table, the legal documents spread before him, allowing himself a small smile. Every move she thought she was making secretly had been choreographed months in advance. She believed she was springing a trap, never suspecting she was walking into one. Marcus arranged the chairs in his living room with deliberate precision. Patricia Chen, his real attorney, sat poised with a leather briefcase full of documents. The forensic accountant, Mr. Reynolds, organized spreadsheets and bank records on the coffee table. Julian Torres perched nervously on the edge of his seat, his hands clasped tightly together. The process server waited quietly by the window. Marcus checked his phone, 6:47 p.m. He knew Vanessa was with Devon at their usual hotel, the Westbrook. His surveillance team had confirmed it an hour ago. He typed out the text. "Come home now. We need to talk about finances." 3 dots appeared immediately. Then, "In a meeting." "Can it wait?" "No," Marcus replied. "Now." While they waited, Patricia reviewed key documents one final time. Mr. Reynolds double-checked his forensic analysis of the money trail from Julian's accounts through various offshore shells to Vanessa's hidden holdings. Julian kept glancing at the door, his face pale. "Are you ready for this?" Patricia asked Julian quietly. He nodded, though his hands trembled slightly. 5 years of people thinking I destroyed my own company? 5 years of working 2 jobs to pay off debts I didn't create. I'm ready. At 7:23 p.m., they heard keys in the lock. Vanessa stepped inside, freezing when she saw the assembled group. Her hair was slightly disheveled, lipstick freshly reapplied. She was wearing the red dress Marcus had noticed was her favorite for meetings with Devon. "What's this?" Her voice wavered slightly, eyes darting between the faces. Marcus stood slowly. "We need to discuss asset protection, since you're so concerned about it." His voice was calm, cold, a tone Vanessa had never heard from him before. "Who are these people?" Vanessa's professional mask slipped into place as she set down her purse. "Let me introduce everyone properly." Marcus gestured to each person. "Patricia Chen, my actual attorney, not the budget lawyer you met. Mr. Reynolds, forensic accountant. The gentleman by the window is a process server." He paused. "And I believe you already know Julian Torres." Vanessa's face went white. "Julian." "Hello, Vanessa." Julian's voice was quiet but steady. "It's been 5 years." Marcus picked up a thick folder. "Let's start with the simplest revelation." He began laying out documents, corporate filings, trust documents, investment portfolios. "My current net worth is approximately $340 million. That's after 5 years of growth from the sale of my AI security company." Vanessa swayed slightly, grabbing the back of a chair. "What? Everything you've been searching for?" "It was hidden in plain sight through legal entities you never connected to me. Web Technologies, Horizon Holdings, Maritime Trust Group." Marcus spread out more papers. "The prenup you were so proud of? The one protecting your $5.2 million? It gives you zero claim to my $340 million since you demanded separate property." Mr. Reynolds stepped forward with his analysis. "Now, about that $5.2 million of yours. Let's discuss where it really came from." He opened a laptop, turning it to show banking records. "We've traced every penny you embezzled from Julian's company. Over $4 million siphoned through a complex network of transfers." Julian found his voice. "You destroyed my business, my reputation. I lost everything while you walked away claiming I'd hidden assets." "I've been working with prosecutors for 3 months," Marcus added. "They're very interested in the evidence we've compiled." Vanessa's eyes darted toward the door, but Marcus wasn't finished. He pulled out another file. "Your affair with Devon. I have everything. Texts, photos, hotel records." He laid out surveillance photos from the Westbrook. "The prenup's infidelity clause that you insisted on? It means you forfeit all marital property rights. Plus, you owe me $100,000 in penalties. That's not, Vanessa started, but Marcus cut her off. The credit cards you opened in my name? Federal crime. He showed her the police report. Identity theft carries serious prison time. The process server stepped forward with 2 sets of documents. Your choice is simple, Marcus said, placing them before her. Option 1. Sign this agreement. Return everything you stole from Julian plus interest, $5.8 million total. Waive all marital property rights. Admit in writing to the embezzlement and affair. Agree to supervised community service and counseling. He tapped the second document. Option 2. I prosecute you criminally for embezzlement and identity theft. Divorce you under the infidelity clause. Sue you civilly for fraud and emotional distress. You lose everything, including your freedom. Vanessa stared at the papers, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. I need time to think. Until morning, Marcus said flatly. Choose wisely. The morning sun streamed through Marcus's living room windows as Vanessa's family filed in one by one. Her mother, Barbara's usually perfect makeup, couldn't hide her worried frown. Her father, Richard's jaw was set tight, his business suit crisp, but his posture tense. Sarah, Vanessa's younger sister, kept glancing between her sister and Marcus, confusion clear on her face. Marcus had arranged chairs in a semicircle facing his laptop, which was connected to a large TV screen. Vanessa sat apart from her family, her designer dress wrinkled from sleeping in it, her eyes red-rimmed from a sleepless night. Thank you for coming, Marcus began, his voice steady and professional. What I'm about to show you will be difficult to hear, but you deserve the truth about who your daughter really is. He started his presentation with the prenup discussion. Vanessa told me her grandmother died, leaving her $5.2 million. Barbara's hand flew to her mouth. Her own mother was very much alive in Florida. The truth is, that money came from here. Marcus pulled up the divorce records from Julian Torres. Who is Julian Torres? Richard asked, his deep voice wavering slightly. My first husband, Vanessa whispered, not meeting her father's eyes. Sarah gasped. But you told us you'd never been married before, Marcus. Marcus methodically walked them through everything. The systematic embezzlement from Julian's business accounts, the offshore transfers, the bankruptcy that destroyed Julian's reputation. He showed them proof of the affair with Devon, surveillance photos, text messages, hotel receipts. The credit cards Vanessa had opened in his name appeared on screen, along with the police report for identity theft. The skip tracing service she hired to investigate me, Marcus continued, showing the credit card statements. The prenup manipulation to protect her stolen assets while trying to claim my future earnings. Everything was calculated from the beginning. Barbara's shoulders shook as she began to cry. All those times you said you were working late. Were you with this Devon person? Mom, I can explain, Vanessa started. Explain what? Richard erupted, his face red. Explain how you destroyed a man's business? How you lied to us about being married before? How you committed fraud and identity theft? Sarah wouldn't even look at her sister. The grandmother story. How could you use Grandma like that? She's alive, for God's sake. A knock at the door interrupted them. Devon entered, wearing an expensive suit and carrying flowers. His confident smile faltered when he saw the assembled group. Perfect timing, Marcus said coldly. He handed Devon an envelope. This is being filed with the State Bar Association today. Ethics violations for having an affair with your friend's wife while providing her legal advice on divorce strategy. Your career as an attorney is over. Devon's face drained of color as he read the complaint. You can't? I already have. Marcus turned to Julian, who had been sitting quietly in the corner. Now, for something positive. Julian, I've purchased all of your outstanding debt. $800,000, forgiven completely. He handed Julian a document. And this is paperwork for a $2 million investment in your new construction company. where I'll be a silent partner." Julian's hands trembled as he took the papers. Tears streamed down his face. 5 years. 5 years of working 2 jobs. Barely surviving. "Thank you. Thank you." Vanessa sat perfectly still, her designer purse clutched in white-knuckled hands, watching her carefully constructed world disintegrate. Her family wouldn't meet her eyes. Devon was already backing toward the door, his own survival instinct kicking in. Marcus placed the agreement in front of her again. "Sign now, or I file criminal charges within the hour." "You played me perfectly," Vanessa whispered, reaching for the pen. "All this time." "You confused humility with weakness," Marcus said quietly. "That was your fatal mistake." Her signature was shaky but legible. As soon as she finished, Marcus's attorney sent notifications freezing all her accounts pending the $5.8 million transfer to Julian. "Pack your things," Marcus instructed. "Security will supervise. The apartment was always mine through one of my trusts. Another detail you missed?" Vanessa moved through the apartment like a ghost, filling suitcases while a security guard watched. Her mother had stopped crying, now sitting in stony silence. Her father stared out the window, shoulders rigid with anger and shame. Sarah had moved to comfort Julian, who was still crying tears of relief over his newfound freedom from debt. Each designer dress Vanessa folded represented another piece of her life crumbling away. Every jewel she carefully wrapped reminded her of the wealth she'd tried to steal, only to lose everything she already had. In less than 24 hours, her entire carefully constructed facade had shattered, leaving her with nothing but packed bags and the weight of her own choices. 3 years later, Marcus adjusted his bow tie in the ornate mirror of the Grand Meridian Hotel's ballroom foyer. His wife, Diana, radiant in a midnight blue gown that elegantly draped over her 6-month baby bump, reached up to perfect the adjustment. "Still not used to these fancy events?" she teased, her eyes sparkling with warmth. "I prefer coding in sweatpants," Marcus replied with a smile, placing his hand over hers. "But this one matters." The ballroom buzzed with energy, as hundreds of wealthy donors gathered for the first annual gala benefiting the Second Chance Foundation. Julian Torres's new nonprofit supporting divorced men, financially devastated by fraud. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over tables adorned with white roses and silver settings. Julian himself stood near the stage, handsome in his tuxedo, greeting guests with natural charm. His construction company had just completed its first major development project, and the confidence showed in his posture. Beside him, his fiancée Rebecca, a kindergarten teacher who'd never heard of him during his bankruptcy days, beamed with genuine pride. "Hard to believe that's the same man from 3 years ago," Diana murmured, remembering the broken person Marcus had described from that confrontation day. "Success is the best revenge," Marcus replied, "though I prefer to call it justice." The divorce from Vanessa had been quietly efficient. She'd had no resources to fight, no legal ground to stand on, no sympathy from anyone once the truth emerged. Her event planning business imploded when former clients learned of her fraud. Devon's disbarment was equally swift, the Bar Association particularly harsh on attorneys who betrayed both professional and personal ethics. Marcus's life had continued almost unchanged. His careful separation of public and private personas meant few people even connected him to the scandal. Those who knew the truth admired how he'd handled it. Diana squeezed his hand. They'd met at a tech conference 6 months after his divorce, where she'd recognized him immediately as the founder of his AI security company. Their courtship was refreshingly honest from the start. She had her own successful software company, and no interest in his wealth beyond the shared excitement of building something meaningful together. "Mr. Webb," a reporter from the Business Journal approached, notebook in hand. "This is quite an event. What inspired your foundation's focus on helping fraud victims rebuild their lives?" Marcus considered his answer carefully. "I believe in helping people who've been underestimated and betrayed," he said finally. Sometimes the quietest people have the most power. Some people learn that lesson too late. Diana leaned into his arm as the string quartet began playing their first dance song from their wedding. "Shall we?" They moved onto the dance floor, other couples joining them. Julian and Rebecca danced nearby, lost in each other's eyes. Marcus caught glimpses of other success stories from the foundation, men who'd rebuilt their lives with legal support and business mentoring, now returning as donors themselves. Across town, in a cramped studio apartment above a laundromat, Vanessa Price sat on her narrow bed, still in her retail store uniform. Her cracked phone screen showed Marcus's latest social media updates. Photos from charity galas, ribbon cuttings for new tech centers, business magazine covers celebrating his innovation and philanthropy. She zoomed in on a recent photo of him with Diana at a hospital wing dedication, his hand resting protectively on her pregnant belly, both of them radiating contentment. The life she could have had, if she'd chosen differently, burned in her throat. Her family barely spoke to her now. 3 years of working retail hadn't made a dent in her legal debts. Her attempts to restart her event planning business failed when background checks revealed her history. Back at the gala, Marcus and Diana swayed to the music, her head resting comfortably on his shoulder. The room sparkled around them, success, love, and vindication wrapped in crystal and candlelight. Julian raised his champagne glass in their direction, his smile genuine and grateful. "Thank you," Diana whispered. "For what?" "For waiting. For not letting the betrayals make you bitter. For building something beautiful out of pain." Marcus kissed her temple softly, thinking of the daughter they'd welcome in 3 months. "Some things are worth waiting for," he said. "Some lessons change everything." The music swelled as more couples joined them on the dance floor, the night filled with possibility and second chances. Through the ballroom's towering windows, the city lights twinkled like stars, while somewhere in those streets, Vanessa stared at her phone's fading battery, finally understanding the magnitude of what she'd thrown away. I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.